Helena Blavatsky, the great mother of modern occultism, wrote that the dream is the threshold between the visible and the invisible, the bridge between what we were and what we have not yet remembered being. Have you never felt this in your very flesh and soul? You wake with a racing heart, altered breathing, as if you had just returned from another time, from another skin, from another life. Sometimes, upon opening your eyes, you do not know if you are who you believe yourself to be, or merely the persistent shadow of someone else. Why are there dreams that do not seem like mere imagination but fragments of memory? Why are there oniric stories that do not sound invented, but recalled? They are not mere mental echoes or wanderings of the unconscious, but cracks through which other existences infiltrate. Some dreams are open portals to forgotten civilizations, bodies we have inhabited for centuries, names we uttered before we had this face. Since the most remote antiquity, wise souls have understood that the dream is not a time of rest, but of revelation. Entire cultures, from the Vedic rishis to the Alexandrian Hermetists, claimed that dreaming is remembering. Reincarnation, central to Hinduism, Buddhism, and certain Western mystical schools, tells of a soul that does not die, but merely changes form, scenery, and character. The body is transient, an ephemeral garment, but the soul bears the seals of all its journeys. These scars, ancient loves, and old deaths sometimes activate at night, when the ego dissolves and the subconscious unfolds like an ancient book. Especially in the REM phase, when the human brain plunges into its deepest seas, images may emerge that do not belong to this life. Some psychologists believe that the unconscious resides there, but those who have sipped from hidden sources know that this unconscious is the subtle archive of the soul, inscribing every life and every name we have ever had. Thus, if you have ever dreamed that you were walking through streets you've never trodden yet recognize with intimate certainty, if you spoke in languages you never studied, or if you felt nostalgia for a place that does not exist on any map, perhaps you were not dreaming but remembering, and you are not alone. The number of people who report vivid dreams with details impossible to invent grows day after day. In these dreams, you see yourself wearing attire from another era, adopting customs you never learned, or riding a horse as if you had lived an entire life in a medieval village or an Egyptian temple. How can you explain waking with knowledge you never studied, or with skills you have never practiced in this life? Where does this sudden talent for playing an instrument, speaking another language, or moving through an art or science as if it were always yours come from? Blavatsky taught that these talents are reminiscences of the soul, gifts that cross the threshold of death because what is learned is never lost, only transferred. In dreams, what was repressed blossoms. Some also wake sweating with a constricted chest after experiencing wars, shipwrecks, executions, or losses that find no echo in their current history. Pains so real that they even leave physical sensations. Science may say it is stress manifesting itself, but the initiated know that these horrors are unresolved traumas from other incarnations, karmic wounds that remain open. The most revealing moments occur when the same unknown person repeatedly appears in your dreams. Someone you have never seen in this life, yet feel has always been by your side. Sometimes there is immediate love, other times visceral repulsion. There is no logic, but there is a root in bonds from other lives, karmic relationships, and unfulfilled promises. Souls continue to search for each other through time because death does not erase true connections, it only transforms them. There are dreams in which you die, and instead of terror, feel peace, as if you finally understand that dying is not disappearing, but returning. In that moment of transition, the soul shows the exact instant you left one life to begin another. Blavatsky called this the consciousness of passage, a state achieved by few. Some dreams even bring missions. You wake knowing that you are here for something greater. You cannot explain why, but you feel you must help, build or repair something that you did not start in this life, but now is your responsibility. Far from being fantasy, these are calls from the higher soul. Reincarnation is not a myth, but a science of the spirit, and the dream, when understood in its depth, is the master key to this truth. If you have felt all this, if any part of you recognizes these words, it is not because you have read them, but because you already knew them. Your soul remembers. Your higher consciousness confirms. Helena Blavatsky did not teach us to believe, but to remember. If you have come this far, perhaps it is because a part of you has already awakened. She wrote that when the body sleeps, the soul frees itself from its carnal bonds and sails through the invisible planes where eternal truth dwells. In the REM stage, when the body is motionless and the mind active, the veil between the physical and the astral thins. The brain processes the day's memories, yet it also opens like a mystical flower to the spirit's sun to receive messages that do not come from this life. Modern psychologists say that the unconscious takes control, bringing repressed traumas, desires, and deep emotions to the surface. Some contend that the unconscious is not just a black box, but the living archive of the soul, storing all your lives, faces, and names. In the most vivid dreams, you might see something beyond random images. Perhaps you glimpse your past, not that of yesterday, but of other existences. There are places you have never visited yet recognize, languages you have never learned yet understand, people you have never seen yet love or hate with inexplicable intensity. How can this be explained if not by the fact that you have been there or spoken that way before? Blavatsky taught that the memory of the soul is never lost. It is only hidden beneath layers of the ego. In deep dreams, the soul is allowed to remember. If, when dreaming of a city, you move with familiarity, confidently turning corners and knowing what lies behind a door before you open it, perhaps it is not a simple dream, but a return to a fragment of another life. The same occurs when, in dreams, you speak fluently in a language you do not know. It might be your soul dusting off a language it once mastered in another body. Some wake with words in their mind, entire phrases in languages they later discover are real, even though they have never consciously heard them. While some claim it is the product of reading or movies, the mind does not invent such detailed knowledge that it was never taught. The emotional connection, fluency, and precision point unmistakably to another life. If you dream of historical periods you never studied, wearing the tunics of ancient Greece, or the ceremonial garments of a Mayan temple, feeling that you belong there, it is very likely you lived in that era. Sometimes someone rides a horse in their dreams as if they have always done so, understanding ancient protocols and forgotten social norms. Upon waking, you realize it was not merely a mind's game, but a return. Dreams also speak through people. If you repeatedly see the same unknown faces with an inexplicable familiarity, perhaps they are soul companions who were with you in past incarnations. They may appear in different forms, yet share the same bond, as if time and death could never sever it. Some dreams do not evoke love, but pain. Intense nightmares that cause you to wake sweating, crying, or in unexplained physical discomfort. Wars, drownings, chases, or tortures you did not experience in this life, but which feel so real that they affect your body. Where do these come from? They arise from the soul's archive, traumatic memories from another existence seeking understanding. Some even awaken with marks on their body, as if the soul, when remembering, also left traces on the flesh. There are dreams in which you do things you never learned, playing the piano with mastery, cooking like a chef, speaking several languages, or painting with an unfeigned certainty. Then, upon waking, you wonder how you did it. And if you try, you may discover a hidden talent. It was not merely a dream, but a memory. Blavatsky said that the soul never forgets what it has learned, and every gift that comes effortlessly originates from another life, perfected in its time. Sometimes it is not events but emotions that awaken you. A love that hurts without reason, a faceless hatred, a grief you cannot place, a sense of mission or destiny. Emotions that do not belong to your present, yet feel profoundly real. They are the soul's voice calling you to close circles, fulfill promises, or recover something lost. There are times when you dream of dying and, instead of terror, feel peace, as if you understand that dying is simply another step. Some have dreamt of their own death with such detail and lucidity that they wake transformed. Blavatsky wrote that such dreams may be rehearsals of the soul, memories of the final passage, carrying the wisdom of one who has already crossed that threshold. Sometimes, dreams bring missions. They do not reveal the past, but a purpose. You awaken with absolute certainty that you must help, teach, heal, or build something, though you cannot explain why, only that it must be so. These dreams are messages from the higher soul, reminding you that you are not here by chance. If you feel all this, if a part of you recognizes these words, it is your soul confirming what it always knew. Helena Blavatsky, founder of the Theosophical Society, maintained that the human soul is an eternal traveler, leaving invisible footprints in every life, and that dreams are not mere illusions, but whispers of the spirit that recall what once was. Therefore, when you dream of places you've never set foot in and feel a depth that cannot be feigned, you are not imagining, you are remembering. You walk through streets your body has never traversed, yet your feet move with the certainty of one who has crossed them 1,000 times. You plunge into markets, squares, temples, or ruins with an inexplicable familiarity. When you awaken, something tells you that this place was not new, but yours. Perhaps you recognized a language, a tradition, or a greeting you never studied but which dwells in you as ancestral memory. It is not a mere déjà vu, but something deeper and certain, a sense of belonging that drives many people to search for that place in reality. And sometimes, when they finally arrive, they feel as if they already know which way to go, what lies beyond a certain street, and understand the local language without having studied it. It might seem like coincidence or imagination, but for those who experience it, it is proof that they have been there in another time. The same happens when you dream in an unknown language and speak it fluently and naturally. Upon waking, the language dissipates, leaving only fragments or isolated words that resonate. Many discover it is a real language they had never seen before. Skeptics might say it is a random construction of the brain. But those who feel its emotional intensity know there is something deeper. Blavatsky stated that the soul is an interdimensional traveler that never forgets, even if it slumbers beneath the veil of oblivion, waiting for the moment, like the dream, to remember itself. For her, language was a profound seal of spiritual identity. When a soul recalls a language, it is because that language was once its own, a part of its experience, its loves, and its death. In some dreams, language flows like an ancient river, with every word carrying an emotional weight that transcends the rational. This connects with dreaming of historical eras you never studied, but feel inherently yours. Have you ever seen yourself walking on cobblestone streets under torchlight, wearing clothes that seem natural, even though you have never worn them? Have you felt the breeze of an ancient port, or the strictness of court etiquette, without these ever being part of your present? Upon waking, many feel a profound melancholy, as if they had left something behind. It is not an invented nostalgia, but the genuine sorrow of abandoning a life that remains active in the soul's records. Intriguingly, many of these people show no prior interest in history. They neither read about the past nor consume period dramas, yet they dream of precise details of customs, social structures, and ancient languages. How can someone who has never studied the 19th century know, in a dream, how to behave at a Victorian table, respond to an invitation, or walk with proper posture? How does someone with no interest in ancient Egypt dream of specific rituals dedicated to Isis, or of the construction of temples later found to exist exactly as seen? Blavatsky taught that the soul does not travel without leaving marks. Each incarnation adds a layer to the subtle body we carry from life to life, and the dream is one of the doors that allows us to feel these layers. The sense of belonging that arises in certain historical settings is not fantasy but evidence of that journey. What is most revealing is not just what we see, but what we feel in these dreams. There is no surprise or strangeness, only immediate reconnection. We know what we do, where we are, and what to say. as if we have returned. Sometimes we wake with ideas or intuitions that seem from another era, as if part of that past life still infuses our energy. When the soul remembers, it does not bring only images, but its entire weight. And in dreams, that weight is felt more strongly than in wakefulness. Therefore, if you wake with an inexplicable emotion, or feel that you have lived another life with absolute clarity, do not deny it. It is your eternal memory surfacing. Blavatsky knew that the soul does not forget. It only waits for the right moment to remind you of what you were, what you are, and what you will always be. If you have come this far, comment 100% as a symbol that something in you resonated with these words. She also asserted that nothing the soul experiences is ever lost. Each experience leaves a mark on the subtle planes, which can re-emerge in altered states of consciousness with even greater force than in wakefulness. That is why some people, without ever having studied history or culture, wake from a dream knowing how to behave in settings from another time, mastering codes, norms, and knowledge that were never consciously learned. Perhaps in your dream, you rode a horse with the deftness of someone who does it daily, understood the etiquette of an ancient court, or knew exactly what to say in a medieval context. Upon waking, you wonder where this knowledge came from. You did not study it, see it in films, or hear it in class. Where does it come from? From another life, from the secret library that each of us carries within. These dreams feel more like recollections than inventions. They do not surprise you, they reunite you, and you do not just reconnect with places, eras, or skills, but with people and presences that appear as unknown faces, yet are deeply familiar. Recurring dreams, featuring the same unknown individuals, are a powerful sign of karmic connection. Faces never seen in waking life, but intimately known in the dream realm. Perhaps there is an immediate, inexplicable love or a visceral repulsion. You trust blindly someone you have never seen awake, or fear someone who has never harmed you. When these same faces reappear in dreams in different roles or eras, but with the same essential energy, the soul is trying to show you something. The deepest relationships are not born in this life, but are carried over from previous existences, repeating in various forms until we learn the lesson. The people you repeatedly dream of may have been your parents, children, lovers, or enemies, and they return because something remains unresolved. Sometimes they appear as companions in dream adventures, other times as obstacles or guides. But their recurrence is no accident. Their faces remain etched in your memory long after waking, leaving you to wonder who they are and why they feel so familiar. You may never find them in social networks or daily life, but something inside knows that you already know them. The fascinating part is that these faces can appear in different settings and eras in your dreams, as if time and death could never sever the bond. Karma is not only evident in the events of your life, but also in the faces you cannot forget, even if they do not belong to this life. When you repeatedly see that unknown face in your dreams or feel that a story is repeating itself, pay attention. Perhaps it is not a creation of your mind, but a soul that has traveled alongside you through many incarnations, waiting for the moment when you both awaken and remember. Blavatsky maintained that all deep suffering and intense emotion leave a mark on the subtle planes, transcending the death of the body. Sometimes these impressions reappear when consciousness opens during sleep. That is why you wake in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, feeling that you have escaped a nightmare so real that your body still bears its terror. The most unsettling thing is that this oniric event never occurred in this life. It is not part of your current memories, yet you feel it with an intensity that defies logic. Perhaps you are fleeing from a war, caught amidst gunfire and screams, or drowning in a shipwreck, feeling a cold that reached your bones. When you wake, you tremble with a knot in your throat and real physical pain. Science may try to explain this as a way of processing stress or unconscious fears, but such explanations do not capture the emotional dimension of these experiences. They are not simple nightmares, but memories, echoes of a past life that have found a breach to emerge. When a trauma is too overwhelming, It can transcend death and cling to the astral body like an open wound. In future existences, if conditions allow, this suffering may reappear. The dream, by suspending rational defenses, activates this hidden archive. Thus, we relive ancient deaths, atrocious losses and fears that did not originate in this life. That is why they hurt so much, because the soul does not differentiate between yesterday and today. It feels everything in the present. Some people repeatedly dream of the same traumatic scene, fleeing from the same prison, sinking on the same ship, bidding farewell to the same loved one in front of a guillotine. With each repetition, the soul cries out for attention, understanding, and healing. Sometimes these dreams begin a deep process of transformation, for identifying the root of the pain and accepting that it belongs to another life opens the possibility of its liberation. Blavatsky asserted that awareness of pain is the first step toward spiritual transmutation. Everything the soul remembers with suffering, when embraced by current consciousness, can transform into wisdom. These dreams do not come to torment you, but to help you heal, revealing the invisible chains that still bind you. Often, these past traumas continue to influence your present without you realizing it. Irrational fears, blockages, difficult relationships, or a constant sense of threat. When you dream of them, the soul places them before you so you may release them. Sometimes the dream is so vivid that you not only recall what happened, but also why it happened. You see consequences, decisions, injustices, and compassion, and in that moment of understanding, the cycle begins to close. You do not need to relive every detail in therapy. Simply acknowledge that what hurt is already past and does not belong to your current story, even if it once affected you deeply. That fear of loss, that panic of fire, confinement or abandonment might not have been born in this life, but demand to be seen, named, and released. Blavatsky called this process the purification of the soul through memory, an inner alchemy where the pain of a previous existence is transformed into light for the next. Everything can begin with a dream, so the next time you wake agitated by something you did not live in your own flesh yet left your heart in pieces, do not dismiss it. Observe, listen, and ask yourself what it wished to reveal. Perhaps it is not a mere mental residue, but a part of your soul crying out for liberation. If you have the courage to face this record, both foreign and intimately yours, you will feel something within change, for in remembering, you begin to heal. Helena Blavatsky, with her penetrating gaze into the abysses of the soul, taught that we all possess dormant capacities not acquired in this life, but emerging from past existences where they were cultivated with effort and passion. Therefore, do not be surprised if, in the midst of a dream, you find yourself playing an instrument with mastery or speaking several languages naturally without ever having learned them. Perhaps you work metal like an ancestral blacksmith, embroider like a Renaissance craftswoman, write poetry in an extinct language, or navigate ancient ships. The most striking aspect is not what you do, but how you do it, with assurance, tranquility, and the confidence of someone who dedicated an entire life to perfecting that art. When you wake, your rational mind doubts, yet something inside insists, I knew this, I did this before. It is not a trick of the brain, but a memory of other lives where that talent was essential to your purpose. Blavatsky and the esoteric tradition maintained that the soul absorbs everything it learns, and even if the body dies, that learning continues to vibrate in the subtle planes. That is why, when you dream of mastering a skill you do not possess in this life, do not dismiss it. It may be a sign that it is time to reconnect with what your soul already knows. The fascinating moment comes when you bring that dream-inspired insight into your conscious life. Some, after dreaming, decide to test the ability experienced during sleep and discover they possess at least an initial aptitude that did not come from nowhere. These talents are not new, but ancient flames that never went out, waiting for the right moment to reappear. Life in the waking world does not always provide the conditions to manifest all that we once were, yet the soul strives, and the dream is one of its resources. In it, the soul recalls not only what you have lived, but also what you know how to do, what you love, and what you might recover if you pay attention. Therefore, if you dream that you move with expertise in an art or field of knowledge, consider it a revelation. Perhaps the dream is not merely metaphorical, but a literal manifestation of what you once were. The soul does not forget what it mastered. It preserves and waits for the right circumstances to continue its evolutionary path. Yet sometimes what returns is not knowledge, but a feeling. We then enter a subtler realm, that of emotional connections without apparent explanation in this life. Blavatsky explained that some bonds survive the death of the body, intense emotions that are not destroyed but traverse incarnations like invisible threads. That is why in dreams you may encounter people you do not recognize rationally, yet who stir overwhelming emotions within you. Perhaps you dream of a stranger and feel a love so pure it brings tears upon waking, or conversely, a deep anger and fear towards someone you cannot identify. These emotional dreams are not mere products of the mind. They are karmic resonances, unfinished relationships that demand to be understood and healed. Sometimes what you cannot explain is precisely the truest. These intense oniric connections reappear because, in some past life, there was love, betrayal, loyalty, passion, revenge, or pain that was never resolved. The soul, in its wisdom, presents them in dreams so you may recognize them and resolve what remains unfinished. Blavatsky asserted that every intense emotion is a key to the past and that the dream is the door through which they return. Therefore, if you dream of someone you have never seen, yet who seems known from time immemorial, do not ignore it. This person might be essential to your soul's journey, someone with whom you have unfinished business. The soul neither lies nor invents. It remembers, even if the mind cannot comprehend. Not every setting points directly to a past life. Sometimes it is that inexplicable emotion in your heart that tells the story. The soul recalls not only through images, but also with intensity and vibration. That is why some dreams do not unfold in ancient cities, but revolve around a single presence. You see someone unfamiliar, yet when you look at them, something within ignites or shatters. Perhaps you love them with overwhelming force, or perhaps you reject them with horror. You wake confused, with an emotion that does not seem to belong to this life. Some even weep for the death of someone who never existed in your current history, yet the mourning is so real it lingers for days. These dreams are no accident but karmic encounters, connections that neither time nor death can erase. Not all dreams of past lives display clear symbols or historical eras. Sometimes there are only pure, visceral emotions that defy logic. Blavatsky explained that the soul does not store only events, but also unresolved bonds. And in dreams, when the ego rests, these emotions return. Even if the mind cannot interpret them, the soul feels them. If the same person appears in different dreams, with different names or bodies, yet with the same essential energy, it is because something remains unresolved. Just as some dreams reveal old loves or losses, others are even more impactful, those in which you die without terror, but with profound peace. Dreaming of one's own death is usually disturbing, yet it is not always a nightmare. Many recount the experience exactly: the fall, the final breath, the detachment from the body, and a serene silence. Instead of fear, they feel calm and acceptance. They wake with the impression of having experienced something sacred and, as a result, feel transformed. Blavatsky asserted that the soul sometimes revisits the scene of its last death as part of its integration, for in that moment truths are revealed that the ego cannot bear. If the soul can bring that memory into the dream, it is a sign you are ready to understand the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. That dreamt death is not an end, but a bridge between what you were and what you are now. In that moment, the soul reconciles with its history. Fear dissipates, leaving only gratitude for having lived, learned, and let go. Some awaken with a new perspective, compassion, healthy detachment, and no longer view death as an abyss, but recognize it as a door. The dream has shown you the key. Not all dreams, however, are peaceful. Some bring ancient fears, inexplicable terrors that do not originate in this life, but from traumatic experiences of past incarnations. We reach a point where phobias or irrational anxieties arise. Have you ever woken trembling in panic over something that never once frightened you? Have you dreamed of situations that awaken deeply rooted fears, drowning, falling into a void, being trapped, and upon waking, feel that these fears have grown stronger? These dreams are not always symbolic. Sometimes they are memories. Blavatsky believed that many of our deepest fears may be remnants of painful deaths, betrayals, accidents, or tragedies from other lives. The soul does not forget, and when it finds the opportunity in a dream, it releases these memories so you may face and heal them. If you dream that you die by drowning and wake with a fear of water, or dream that you fall and develop a fear of heights, perhaps your body does not remember, but your soul does. That death at sea, that fall from a tower, that confinement might have happened before. The dream shows the root of the fear, the hidden seed that still vibrates within you. Understanding this can be the first step toward healing. What becomes conscious can transform. By observing these terrifying scenes with compassion and accepting that you are not crazy or broken but merely remembering, you begin to free yourself of this burden. The soul does not wish for you to carry this pain forever. It wants you to recognize it, embrace it, and release it. Just as there are dreams that reactivate your deepest fears, there are others that deliver your purpose, your mission in life. These are the most powerful, not mere stories, but callings. You wake with absolute clarity, as if an invisible voice has assigned you a task. Suddenly you know you are here for a reason and that something must be done. Often, this mission relates to something unfinished from another life, an unfulfilled vow, an unused talent, a karma needing balance, or a cause you embrace that now calls you again. Some, after these dreams, change their lives completely, leaving a meaningless job, moving to another city, starting a project, or dedicating themselves to helping others. They do this not because someone told them to, but because they feel it. The soul has awakened, and the dream has shown you the next step. Pure intuition arises when the soul remembers itself, aligning you with the complete image of your existence. You are more than this life, this body, or this story. You are an eternal essence in constant movement and learning. If you have experienced any of these dreams and something inside stirred upon hearing these words, if your fears, certainties, and memories resonated, comment 100%. It does not mean you merely watched a video, but that something in you recognized these truths and your soul responded. Once the soul awakens, there is no return. You only have to follow your calling.